This book is full of spiders. 25 hours prior to Outbreak. English should have a word for that feeling you get when you first wake up in a strange room and have no freaking idea where you are. Hotezelment? Hotezelment? Hotezelment. I was cold, and every inch of my body was in pain. I heard a crunching like the jaws of a predator grinding through bone. I pulled open my eyes. I saw a dragon standing proudly atop a hill before me. The dragon was on a TV screen. Beneath it was a video game console with a tangle of cords snaking across green carpet. I blinked, squinted at the sun burning in through a cracked window. I turned, hearing my neck creak as I did, and saw John sitting at a computer desk in the corner, staring into the monitor and holding a bottle full of a clear liquid that I'm sure you wouldn't want to try to put out the fire with. I sat up, realizing I had been covered up with something in my sleep. I thought for a moment John had thrown a blanket over me, but closer inspection revealed it to be a beach towel. John glanced back at me from his computer chair and said, "Sorry, I used my spare blanket when I got that leak in my car." I looked around for the source of that animal crunching noise. I found Molly laying behind the couch with her head crammed inside an open box of Cap'n Crunch cereal. She was eating as fast as she could, trying to use her paws to keep the box in place. "You're letting her do that?" "Oh, yeah, cereal is stale anyway. I don't have any dog food here." The dragon sat frozen on the television, the intro screen for a video game John had apparently been playing while I slept on the couch. "What time is it?" "Around 8. I stood and felt my head swim. I rubbed my eyes and almost screamed in pain from the wound there. My shoulder felt like it had taken a bullet, and it seemed like a pair of elves were trying to escape my skull through my temples using tiny pickaxes. It wasn't the first time I had woken up at John's place feeling like this. My phone screamed. The display read Amy. I closed my eyes, sighed, and answered. "Hey, baby." "Hi, David. I'm watching the news. What happened?" "Shouldn't you be in class?" Amy had failed a pretty basic English class last semester because it was a morning class and she kept sleeping through it. She said, "They canceled it." "Oh, it's on again. Turn to CNN." I talked around the phone to Jim, told him to switch over the TV. He did and watched as an early morning shot of the chaos at the hospital filled the screen. The name of the city was displayed along the bottom. National News. John turned up the sound and we heard a female reporter say, "No history of drug use or mental illness. Frank Burgess had been with the department for 3 years. Authorities are combing the area for Burgess, but police say the number of wounds he sustained in the standoff makes his turning up alive, quote, highly unlikely. Meanwhile, the hospital remains under quarantine due to unspecified infection, risks that have only added to the anxiety in this shell-shocked community." They cut to a shot of our enormously fat chief of police, giving a soundbite in front of a bank of microphones. To Amy, I said, "Man, our chief of police is getting huge." Amy said, "They said 13 people were hurt, and I think 3 people died, but there could be more. Did you guys hear about this last night, when it was all going on?" A pause on my end. Too long. Finally, I said, "We heard about it, yeah." "Uh-oh." "What?" "David, were you there? Were you guys in on this?" "What? No, of course not. Why would you think that?" "David, no, it was nothing. Guy just went crazy, that's all." "Are you lying?" No. She said nothing. She and the therapist knew the same trick. Filling the silence, I said, "I mean, we were there, but we weren't really involved." "I knew it! I'm coming down." "No, Amy, it's nothing, really. It's over. We just happened to be in the area." I heard John say, "Hey, it's me!" I turned to the television. Sure enough, John's face filled the screen. The reporter's voiceover covered the audio, saying, "But for every hour Burgess remains at large, fear and paranoia are bound to keep growing in this small city." On TV, John's voice faded in. "And then we saw a small creature crawl into its mouth. I wasn't 2 feet away. I saw it clearly. The thing wasn't from this world. I don't mean alien. I mean probably interdimensional in nature. I think it's obvious from what happened tonight this being possessed some powers of mind control." I closed my eyes again and groaned. Amy said, "I'm coming down. I'll take the bus." "Forget it. Your classes are more important. If you fail English again, I think they can kick you out of the country. I think it's in the Patriot Act." "Gotta go, honey. I'm late for class." You said you didn't. We'll talk about it later. Bye-bye." I killed the phone and looked for my shoes. "You going back home?" "I can't stay here, John." "Yeah, but, you had that thing in your house. You think there's another one?" "I don't know, but what do you want me to do? Have the place sprayed?" No, I'm just saying, that thing, it crawled inside Frankie and seemed to take him over. Well, that thing turned up in your bed, and you assuming that's an accident? Because maybe we should consider that it was there for you. I can always trust John to think of things like this. It don't matter, okay? Your cousin isn't long enough. Your couch isn't long enough. It kills my neck on the armrest, so it's moot. Well, you're not getting the bed. I took away Molly's cereal box, which was now just empty cardboard bent in the shape of a dog head. I said, "You sounded crazy on the news, by the way. I hope you know that." "What? I was telling the truth." "To what purpose, exactly? The only people who will be convinced by that are people who are already nuts. I can see you've got your blog up right now. For what? So you can tell the whole nonsense story and be one more nut job ranting on the internet? It doesn't do anybody any good. It just makes you look crazy. It makes both of us look crazy." "Hey, aren't you going to be late for your court-mandated therapist appointment?" "Fuck you." I glanced at my watch. He was right. The drive through town was surreal. I had to go past the hospital. Okay, I didn't have to, but curiosity got the better of me. And it had the air of a natural disaster. News vans were parked outside of barriers that were blocking the street. Cops were at a checkpoint, directing traffic away from the parking garage entrance. 3 blocks later, I had to wait at an intersection for 5 minutes until a row of green trucks rumbled past. Military. I suddenly wanted to get far away from there. I half hoped I would find the psychiatrist's office closed today, as if the aftermath of a shooting rampage would be treated like a national holiday. No such luck. People got to make a paycheck, I guess. I barged in before I realized there was somebody else in the waiting room. Should have looked into the window or something. I would have waited outside if I'd known, since the potential for really awkward conversation seems pretty high in the waiting room of a psychiatrist's office. I tried to think of a plausible excuse for turning around and leaving. The best I came up with was to grab the potted plant in the corner and just walk out, as if it was a mental rental I was repossessing. I decided not to. The lady in the waiting room didn't even turn to me when I came in. She was transfixed by a television in the corner tuned to Fox News, covering the shooting. Jesus, slow news day. People get shot all the time, right? I found a chair as far away from her as possible. I grabbed a magazine and held it in front of my face. Seemed to be a lot of articles about wedding dresses. "It's happening all over, you know," said the woman from the other side of the room. She was probably 45 or so, hair a desperate shade of blonde. I said, "What's that?" "Demon possession, all over the world. You see news from the Middle East and such, and you can see it spreading like wildfire." "Uh-huh. It's easier now that all the souls are gone." I flipped the page of my bridal magazine, acting engrossed in the ads. The only thing worse than always being the craziest person in the room is when you're suddenly alone with someone crazier. She was still talking. "Did you know the rapture happened already? In 1961? The Lord called all the souls up to heaven, but the bodies were left behind. That's why the people walking around today don't seem to have souls. It's because they don't. You see that story last week? The man who was being chased by the police in a stolen car? There was a newborn baby in the back seat. He just threw it out the window. A baby! People these days are just common animals, because their human souls are gone. See?" I lowered the magazine and said, "That's not a bad theory, actually. They call it the mark of the beast, but they don't need a mark. They reveal themselves as beasts, with time." The door to the office creaked open, and out walked a gorgeous teenage girl. For a baffled second, I thought this was somehow my therapist, like maybe she was filling in today, but of course she was just a patient, and Dr. Tennant was behind her. The crazy woman in the waiting room stood and thanked the doctor and walked out with the girl. The lady hadn't been there for treatment. She was just giving her daughter a ride. Right off, Dr. Tennant asked, "What happened to your eye?" "Got in a fight with John. He said counseling was a waste of time, and I told him I'd be damned if I'd hear him insult you and your profession." "You look like you haven't slept." "How can I, with what's going on? Have you been watching the news today? Do you know if they found Frankie?" "He wasn't expected to live, was he? Did you know him?" "What? No. Why would I have known him?" "You called him Frankie." "Well, I went to high school with him, but that was years ago. I didn't have anything to do with what happened, if that's what you mean." "Not at all. Because I didn't. I'm sorry if I made you feel accused." I glanced out the window at the exact moment a green truck rumbled by on the street outside. Why are there so many army trucks? This all seems like an overreaction, don't you think? Not letting me change the subject, Tennant said, "I would like to come back to what you were talked about last time, about having to hide your true self from the world, and feeling like you are powerless to become the type of person who would not have to hide. Just now, you seemed to feel like I was accusing you. I'd like to talk to you about that if we can." I stared out the window and chewed a fingernail. Man, I did not want to be in here. In this office. In this town. In this life. I wanted to just walk out. I knew at some point the cops were going to scoop up John. He'd appeared on goddamn television right in the area they were trying to quarantine. And that meant eventually they'd come get me, too. What the hell was I doing here? Because you have nowhere else to go. I said, I don't know. 24 hours ago, I'm sitting here trying to justify believing crazy things, and one day later, the whole town has gone crazy. So, in my mind, the rest of the world is now caught up to my craziness, which means I should be set free. I rubbed my itchy eyes and said, There are real monsters, Doc. I'm too tired to say anything else. He said, I read some of the things you and your friend posted on the internet. Sometimes you speak of yourself as if you are a freak, or a monster. Well, metaphorically. I mean, aren't we all? The woman in the waiting room just now basically told me the same thing. An incident like last night always brings out those kind of feelings, I suppose. I considered for a moment, then said, Can I ask you a question, Doc? Of course. What would you say if I asked you to use your computer there on your desk, right now, without you having a chance to delete anything? Of course. There is confidential patient information that I couldn't. Let's say I could promise I wouldn't look at any of that. In fact, let's say I just want to look at your internet browser history. How would you feel about that? It would be an invasion of privacy, of course. And I have credit cards and logins. I'm talking about the porn, Doc. Would I find nasty schoolgirl porn on there? Maybe interracial stuff? Incest fantasies? I feel like you're trying to get a reaction from me. If you're not feeling like going through with the session, we can continue on Monday. No, listen. When I'm with Amy and I ask to borrow her computer, she passes it right over. No questions asked, no hesitation. She could sit there and look over my shoulder and watch me sift through every single file, and she wouldn't flinch. She has nothing to hide. It'd be the same if I had a machine that could peer into her mind. She'd be fine with it. She's comfortable with it, with what she is. But, on the other hand, if she's visiting and she asks to use my laptop, man, there's so much depraved shit on there that if she saw it, she'd call the cops. If she could see what goes through my mind when I see another girl walk by, she'd burst into tears. He nodded. So you feel like you have to hide a part of yourself. And she doesn't. I'm saying it's like that with everybody. There are two kinds of people on planet Earth. Batman and Iron Man. Batman has a secret identity, right? So Bruce Wayne has to walk around every second of every day knowing that if somebody finds out his secret, his family is dead, his friends are dead, everyone he loves gets tortured to death by costume supervillains. And he has to live with the weight of that secret every day, that tension gnawing in his guts. But not Tony Stark. He's open about who he is. He tells the world he's Iron Man. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't have that shadow hanging over him. He doesn't have to spend energy building up those walls of lies around himself. You're one or the other. Either you're one of those people who has to hide your real self because it would ruin you if it came out, because of your secret fetishes or addictions or crimes, or you're not one of those people. And the two groups aren't even living in the same universe. You believe you're Batman. I closed my eyes. What did you say the hourly rate for these sessions was again? I mean, you're in that category. You feel like the people around you would react badly if they knew what you really thought and believed. Not because they'll think I'm crazy. They already think that. But because of how they would react once they knew the truth. You know how people are. That's what you write your books about, right? Group panics and all that? You think the truth would cause mass hysteria. I shrugged and nodded toward the window. Look out there. You'll see. He said, That's actually more true than you know. Don't repeat this, but it appears I'm going to be called in to work on this case. The hospital shooting, I mean. What, like as a profiler or something? Oh, no. I'd be offering my assistance in dealing with the public. It's the panic that is the primary concern, you see, making sure no one gets a hair trigger, some poor soul waiting by their back door with a hunting rifle, shooting at a shadowy shape in the backyard that turns out to be their neighbor. Fear can be fatal, and as I suppose you see on my bookshelf, I'm something of an expert. I thought, that has to be nice, to have a job where fear is something that happens to other people. I stared out the window and said, Do you ever get scared, Dr. Tennant? Of course. But you know these sessions aren't about me. And besides, in your world, everything has some harmless explanation, right? It's always bees. Even this thing with Frankie. Your job will be, what, to go up to a bank of microphones and assure everybody that it's all bees? You feel like I was being dismissive of your fears. I apologize if so. So, does anything scare you, Doctor? Anything irrational? Of course. Here, I'll volunteer my most embarrassing example. I feel like I owe it to you, to make up for the bee story. Are you a fan of science fiction? I don't know. My girlfriend is. Alright, but, Star Trek and Beam Me Up, Scotty. How they can teleport people around. Yeah, the transporters. Do you know how they work? Yeah, just special effects, CGI or whatever they used. No. I mean, within the universe of the show. They work by breaking down your molecules, zapping you over a beam, and putting you back together on the other end. Sure. That is what scares me. I can't watch it. I find it too disturbing. I shrugged. I don't get it. Well, think about it. Your body is just made of a few different types of atoms. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and so on. So this transporter machine, there's no reason in the world to break down all those atoms and then send those specific atoms thousands of miles away. One oxygen atom is the same as another. So what it does is send the blueprint for your body across the beam. Then it reassembles you at the destination, out of whatever atoms it has nearby. So if there is carbon and hydrogen at the planet you're beaming down to, it'll just put you together out of what it has on hand, because you get the exact same result. Sure. So it's more like sending a fax than mailing a letter. Only the transporter is a fax machine that shreds your original body, along with your brain, gets vaporized, which means what comes out the other end isn't you. Is an exact copy that the machine made of a man who is now dead, his atoms floating freely around the interior of the ship, only within the universe of the show. Nobody knows this. Meanwhile, you're dead for eternity. All of your memories and emotions and personality end right there on that platform forever. Your wife and children and friends will never see you again. What they will see is this unnatural photocopy of you that emerged from the other end. And in fact, since transport technology is used routinely, all of the people you see on that ship are copies of long-dead vaporized crew members. And no one ever figures it out. They all continue to blithely step into this machine that kills 100% of the people who use it. But nobody realizes it because each time, it spits out a perfect replacement for the victim at the other end. I stared at him. Why did you tell me that? He shrugged. You asked. His face showed nothing. I thought of the Asian guy, casually disappearing into the magic burrito door, walking out somewhere else. And in that moment, I almost asked Tennant what he knew and who he was. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't have changed anything.